We're here, we're queer, and we love the Lord. That's right, you're listening to Coming Out Christian, a podcast about life at the intersection of queer identity and Christian faith. This fun, faithful, and sometimes irreverent podcast is a production of Love Boldly, an Ohio-based nonprofit creating spaces where LGBTQIA+ people can flourish in Christianity. I'm one of your hosts, Siobhan Boyd Nelson, and my co-host is the Reverend Dr. Ben Hillscamp, Executive Director of Love Boldly. So join us, and let's find out who's coming out today.
Hey, Siobhan, how are you?
Hey, Ben. I am doing well. The sun is shining. You know, that's my first question of the day. Is the sun shining? And it is.
Yes, the sun is shining. It's a little cold today while we're recording. My watch says it's 39 degrees outside, but
Yes.
yes, the sun is out. I hope that on the Sunday that this episode comes out, which is just a few days before Christmas, the sun will also be shining, and we will at least have that to go on, even if Ohio, has kind of schizophrenic type of weather patterns.
That is very true. But if the sun is out there, you can kind of do anything, right? It's like, but if the sun is willing to go out in this, then okay, I'll go too.
Exactly. Well, I just want to start off by kind of saying, particularly to our listeners, we are these last two episodes of our second season are going to be a little bit different. Siobhan and I are actually acting as our guests. And particularly for this episode, Siobhan is going to be our quote-unquote guest for today. So we are kind of changing up who's taking which section, which is why I am doing my very best introverted excuse for banter at the moment. But Christmas is coming up. I know you celebrate Christmas. I do too. I love Christmas. I love this time of year. So I wonder, Siobhan, are there any Christmas traditions in your family, in your life, that are particularly meaningful to you?
My Christmas traditions, they come and go, right? Like, I'm not a person who is like, we have to do this every Christmas or it's not going to be Christmas. Because of the way that kind of my life has unfolded, and because of the way that people and family have moved in and out of my life, I haven't been able to be that way with Christmas traditions. So really, it's about, we really like this year. Let's do it again next year. Or, let's try this thing and see if it's fun. And then we'll do it for a year, right? So we've done the Christmas pajamas, and then we get Skylar, our puppy, pajamas as well. And that's always fun if you can convince a teenage boy to wear matching pajamas with his mom's, right? And that's another thing. I've got a son who I share with a person I'm not married to. So he needed to share his Christmas with both sides of my family as well as both sides of his father's family, right? So when you have a young person that needs to see four families in a single day, your traditions tend to change. I will say the one tradition we did have for many years and we're going back to this year is, I call it our Southern Sojourn. So if you listen to one of our previous episodes with my wife, Shay, you'll know that they are from Louisiana. And so we do this whole drive to the South over 2 days to get to Louisiana, spend about a week there traveling the state and seeing all the people, and then coming home. And it was my son's favorite part of Christmas break, because when we got to Louisiana, he didn't have to wear a coat. He just loved how warm. And so for, a 12-year-old boy, a 13-year-old boy, an Ohio boy, being able to run around in December without a coat, it's fun times.
Yes, indeed. I've actually been in Louisiana at that basic same time of year, and it is definitely a different experience than Columbus, Ohio.
Yes, it is. What about you? What kind of traditions do you have?
Yeah, so I think my family is the same way. other than getting together as a family, kind of in one place, having a big dinner on Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, um, we really don't have kind of like lasting family traditions. They've kind of been different
Mm-hmm.
traditions, different times of year. For a long time while I was growing up, because I was very involved in church choirs. Um, Catholics do midnight mass on Christmas Eve into Christmas
Yeah.
morning. So my family usually didn't go. They would, drop me off, pick me up, but that's about it. But I would go, and we would do an hour of carols and then like an hour and a half long mass service. Um, that would wrap up about 1:30 a.m. And then
Mm-hmm.
I would hurry home with whether a parent was picking me up and climb into bed and fall immediately to sleep. But yeah, usually my Christmas traditions through basically through the end of college were based around church music, being in
Mm-hmm.
choir, um, doing a lot of singing around Christmas because of
Mm-hmm.
all the different services, the specific holidays. When I was in college, it was our college did the festivals of Nine Lessons and Carols, which was a huge. I cannot, if you don't know Swanee Lessons and Carols, I can't tell you what it is because it's just so much pomp, so much circumstance, just so much everything of like the high church Anglican tradition. Um, I have only heard recordings of that service because I was always part of it, but it
Mm-hmm.
was an absolutely magical service that after three or four of the actual services, because there's several services, because some people treat it like a concert as well.
Okay. Yeah.
By the end of it, and with it being cold, by the end of it, none of us in the choir could talk or sing or you know carry on. But that was always church music was always very much a part, and carols and whatnot were very much a
Mm-hmm.
tradition for me, and still are for that reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Associated with this time of year.
So when do you start listening to Christmas music?
Well, officially, I would say as soon as Advent starts. So
Okay.
whenever the first Sunday of Advent is, I think it is totally okay to start doing all the Christmas things,
Got it.
decorating the whole works. Um, Maybe even as early as like Thanksgiving, the day before Thanksgiving, I'll give people. That said, while I don't intentionally listen to Christmas music throughout the year,
Okay.
I was playing. I have a Christian playlist on Spotify,
Mm-hmm.
and one song popped up that was I was listening to. I was like, oh, I listen to this sometimes, kind of folky Christian, and then I realized, oh wait, the lyrics to this song are "What child is this?"
Ah,
And I have
okay.
totally listened to that year round. So Christmas music pops up a little bit throughout the year, and I'm okay with that. I'm not
Got
okay
it.
with it being September and people are already decorating for Christmas. That's just a little too early for me.
Okay.
Um, but a little bit of Christmas music throughout the year, why not?
Got it. Heard. Heard. All right. Love it.
Well, friends, this is a little bit different than our usual episodes, but I have the pleasure of introducing our guest, otherwise known as my wonderful co-host and co-developer of this podcast, Siobhan Boyd Nelson, who uses she, her, hers pronouns. Siobhan's a native of Columbus, Ohio. She received her Bachelor of Arts degree in legal communication from Howard University in 2002 before returning home to receive her JD or law degree from the Ohio State University Mortis College of Law in 2005. Siobhan has had a long history of service in Columbus's LGBTQIA plus community, beginning shortly after, or actually during or shortly after your time at Ohio State.
Shortly after.
Shortly after, including leadership positions on the boards of Link Out, Scarlet and Gay, the OSU GLBT Alumni Association, or Society rather, and the Legacy Fund of the Columbus Foundation. Siobhan practiced law in domestic, probate, and appellate fields before entering the nonprofit sector in 2012, where she worked with Kaleidoscope Youth Center in Stonewall, Columbus. Siobhan then joined Equality Ohio as the director of development in 2018, and also held roles as the director of external relations, deputy director, and interim executive director. Siobhan has served on numerous community boards and is currently serving as board president for Blackout and Proud and board chair of Love Boldly. She's a member of the Columbus Business First 40 Under 40 class of 2019, a recipient of the Create Columbus Visionary Award and the Steve Schellenberger Illuminator Award in 2022. Siobhan was recently named a 2024 Women Wielding the Way by Women for Economic Leadership and Development Columbus. Siobhan identifies as a Black, queer lesbian of Christian faith. She shares her life with her spouse, Shay, and is parents with Shay of Mars, who is a member of Howard University's class of 2025. They also cater to the whims of their pandemic puppy, Skylar, who, if you're a longtime listener of the podcast, you may have caught a bark or two from Skylar, probably responding to Scout in the background. It is my pleasure to welcome again to the podcast our amazing co-host, Siobhan Boyd Nelson.
Hi, Ben. It's great to be here.
So good to have you, and so good to spend some time listening to your story at the intersection of LGBTQA plus identity and Christian faith. Well, we're not going to let you off the hook with our first question, and that is, as our listeners know, could you share your testimony?
Sure. And as I've been thinking about this, I want to share what my testimony is specifically in 2025, because I do have a testimony in 2025. But it starts a little bit earlier. We need to go back to the pandemic, because that's when things were going really well. I've had a lot of periods and ebbs and flows in my life, but this particular period kind of starts with the pandemic, and it starts there because it felt like the instigator of a lot of changes in our larger world and then in my world personally. And the pandemic was hard for me personally because I'm a person who lives with an autoimmune disorder, and I manage that with immune suppression. So it was a pretty scary time with a brand new virus in the world, and not really knowing how this virus was going to change the world and the way that I interacted with it. So that was a pretty tough 2020. But then also my work increased because of the type of work that I did at the time. I would say the workload like doubled or tripled because it became very clear to me. It became very sharp, I think, in my vision, just how much caring for community was part of the work that I was doing, and making sure that in moments of crisis, we had safety nets. So that was a very an important thing to me. And then moving through the pandemic, we get to 2022, and I lose my church. And this church I've talked about it before. It was a church that was part of the UCC. Shay talked about it on their episode. It was a miracle, honestly, finding a church that fit both of us, both of our personalities and worship styles. And it was an anchor in my life. My church was a huge part of my life. I was on the board for a number of years, and just every week, hours of my life were in that space. And when I lost that in 2022, there was this big gaping hole in my life, and other things hadn't gotten any easier. So in the midst of post pandemic, the work has picked up and gotten more intense and harder. Then some things happened, which then made work even harder. And I didn't have my church for that. And then we fast forward to 2023, and I lose my dad about midway through the year. And again, didn't have my church for that. And I'm going to pause right here and say that my dad was, I can't put words to how much of an anchor my father was in my life. There were I am someone who has lived with major depression and anxiety and suicidal ideation. And I can tell you that more than once my father saved my life just because I knew how much he loved me and I didn't want to leave him. Right. So, early, as a teenage girl, as a young woman, it was my father's love that kept me anchored in this world. So in mid 2023, lost him again, did not have a church family surrounding me to help me with that grief. And work was just getting harder and harder. And so then later in 2023, I lost a really good friend of, oh gosh, that I had since college, since 2000. So, 20 plus year friend. Um, and then in 2024, I stopped working full time. And so by the time we get to the end, like midway through 2024, by the time we get to the end of 2024, I'm feeling beat up. I feel like I have been living through 4 years of mental and emotional and spiritual just combat, honestly. And it was taking a toll on my body. It was, like I said, I live with an autoimmune condition, multiple actually, and stress and these types of things are just things that my body does not cope well with. And it was taking a very real toll on my health, my physical health. Um, and not working full time literally took my wife looking at me and saying, "Hey, I need your work not to kill you, right? Like I need you here. You're my wife. We got to do something." So going into 2025, I don't really set New Year's resolutions, but I kind of set intentions or I name my years. It's going to be the year of. And so, having felt beat up and used and abused and lied to and all these different things, I decided that 2025 was going to be my year of savage. I said, now I love Rihanna, so that's where I got the word from. And I said, you know what? I'm tired of being beat up. I'm tired of it. So, like, I am going to be savage. I'm going to say no. I'm going to be selfish. I'm going to think about myself. And yeah, I'm just going to say it like it is and just run through the world like I feel like the world has been running through me. And so here we are at the end of 2025. And Ben, you might be asking yourself, or you might even have an opinion of how I've done at being savage in 2025. And from the look on your face, I think you have an opinion on that. Um, y'all, I failed. I failed miserably at being savage in 2025. Um,
I, if I may, I
yes.
think you're being a little hard on yourself to say you failed. Maybe we're not as savage as you planned, but I don't know if I would say you failed.
Okay. Okay. That's
But I'm
fair.
sorry, keep going.
But I would not say that 2025 was my year of savage. I don't, and I want to say I've gotten to this point before in my life. Like I have had this epiphany, this realization about myself. I had it when I actually left the practice of law and moved into the nonprofit field. And one of the reasons I did that was because I was like, I am not savage. And being an attorney is a little bit about being savage, especially being a trial attorney, being in court, doing divorces. They are quite contentious. And I wasn't in it for the arguing and the contention. I was in it for the serving of families and kids and making sure these things went well. And I came to the conclusion then, oh girl, you're not built for this. You are not built for waking up every day and going and fighting with people. That is just not who you are. So, but in 2025, I wanted to try again. I did want to try again. And I wanted to try again because I felt like the world was beating me up. I felt like I didn't have a choice. It wasn't like I could change careers to get away from that. This was just life, right? This was the new career I had chosen was now beating me up, right? Like I left the savage career, I thought, went to a new field that I thought would fit me better, and then it turned out to beat me up. in a few ways. And so I 2025 was not my year of savage. I tried. Um, and I think my testimony in 2025 is that I am soft, y'all. I am a softie, and that is who I am. And I can't. I need to accept that. I am learning. I think that is going to be my 2026 is remembering, going back to accepting myself for who I am, not trying to meet the world on its terms, not trying to be savage because the world is savage. That's not my ministry. That's not my lane. I need to meet the world with my tools. I need to meet the world in my lane. And the way that I can best do that, the way that I have been created and situated in this world to do that, is with love. Now, I said I'm soft, and I say that in a just as a way of kind of diametrically opposed to savage. And I say I'm soft because I have thin skin. I feel things very deeply. It is a hard thing to be savage when you feel things so easily and as deeply as I do, right? And so this year I wanted to grow a thicker skin. I'm like, no, I'm going to grow a thicker skin. I'm going to be able to withstand these things. I'm going to say no. Um, y'all, I have not grown a thicker skin as much as I wanted it, as much as I prayed for it. It's not a thing that I think God wants to bless me with, and I don't even know if it would be a blessing. Right, I saw the look on your face, Ben. Right, it is what I asked for, and God says He will give you the desires of your heart. And I don't really know that I want to be savage. I don't know if that is truly a desire of my heart. It was the desire of the moment. It was the desire of my fear-led heart. Um, I don't know that it's really who I want to be, because it's not who I truly am. I am a person who wants to lead with love, who wants to feel, who wants to be connected, and who wants to say yes at the end of the day. It truly, yes, really is one of my favorite words. And as much as I tried to be a no person in 2025, I think I'm going to go back to being myself in 2026.
Amen. Amen to that. So I want to start by following up on this idea of savage.
Yes.
Because yes, I do have an opinion. I will share my opinion with you privately because I don't think it has bearing. I don't want it to cloud anything our listeners are hearing from what you're saying.
Okay.
But I'm curious though, because you went back to this idea of soft versus softy, and you
Mm-hmm.
kind of explained that. What does being savage mean to you? What were you maybe what were you hoping that would mean in 2025 or beyond? But how are you thinking about what do you mean by that term?
When I think of savage, I think of it really is encompasses a lot of things. It's the way it's moving through the world, the way that I move through the world. It's the way that I respond to people and events. And when I say that, I mean responding in a way that's either I don't care, or responding in kind when things are unkind, um, responding in a way that is maybe less polite or couth. If you know me, so my wife is a very plain spoken person. And I am a person who loves to be polite and couth. Couth is one of my favorite concepts and words. My father bought me Emily Post's Etiquette when I was 12. And I read that thing front to back. Okay. Like that is just, so I love being able to say anything at all in a very polite and couth way. And I was like, I'm going to stop being couth and polite, right? It's kind of like the real world. What happens when people stop being polite and start getting real? Um, what else? Saying no to things. Saying no to most things, I think, was my intention in 2025. It was truly to say yes to as few things as possible. And I had some pretty high standards for what I was going to say yes to, and everything met the standard. Because everything, it gets to my heart, right? Like I don't have a thick skin. It gets to my heart. And I'm like, and I have this thought of I belong to the world. And when I say that, meaning I am a servant of the world, meaning that if I have time and capacity and energy and it's not actually going to harm me, it's not a question of do I want to do it? Do I desire to do it? Would that be fun for me? Those aren't the questions I ask. The questions I ask are, do you have time? Do you have capacity? Do you have means? And would it be harmful to your health? And if I get green lights on all of those, the answer is yes. And I did not mean for that to be the answer. So does that make a little bit more sense about
It
Savage?
does.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
does totally. Yeah, and as some of our listeners probably know, um, you had stepped up, agreed to be, I don't know which one's a better term, the president of Blackout and Proud about 3 weeks before I sat down with you, and I think with our board chair at the time, or maybe one of our board members at the time, and we were like, Siobhan, how would you like to be a board member? And by the way, would you like to be our interim board chair? And
Yep.
but having said that, and having thought, oh no, she's never going to do this, and then you did. Um, that actually leads me though into something else I want to ask about if you're willing to kind of go there.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned these anchor, what I wrote down is kind of anchor points.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about your dad, you talked about church. And though you didn't, I'm not sure you actually named her, or named them as such. I know another major anchor in your life is your spouse, is Shay.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and I don't consider, I know Shay well enough now that I don't consider Shay to be an intimidating person.
Okay.
That said, when I was trying to get you to serve on the board and then be board chair, Shay scared the hell out of me
They do that
because
a
I
lot.
really thought they were really going to come for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, uh, but I wonder if you could talk or be willing to talk a little bit more about that relationship. I know because I just know how important that is to both of you. The relationship that you two have, the commonalities that you two have, the experiences that you've had together, or just the fact that what you've known each other since college at Howard for
Yes.
25 plus years at this point. I wonder if you would say a little bit more about that relationship.
Oh, absolutely. Shay's one of my favorite people, right? Shay and Mars. And Shay has absolutely stepped up as my anchor um, in this time and has been so sweet, right? Like, and we just had this conversation last night actually about Shay feeling like sometimes they're just grumpy. They're just grumpy with everyone out in the world. And I said, yeah, but you're super sweet to me. And that's all that matters, right? So Shay has been the person that has really had my back and has spoken truth and light and love into my darkness. Um, this 2024 and 2025, like since my father passed until now, it's been some of the darkest times of my life. It hasn't been this dark um, in a very, very long time. I haven't had these kinds of mental health struggles for 10 plus years. Um, and actually, since before our marriage, I think, even. And Shay has completely stepped up in the moment and been the person who has reminded me who I am and whose I am. Shay has um, made sure that I did not give too much of myself. That Shay does not say no very well to me, and that is a no. You shouldn't say no to your wife. Everyone hear that, okay? Saying no to your wife is not a good thing. Saying yes, happy wife, happy life. But Shay has said no to me in the past year or two and said that's too much. Um, and they don't like to do it. It's a hard thing for Shay to say no to me and to tell me that I'm doing too much, because they know, I mean, they met me like this, right? Like, if I don't know, anyone who knows me now, if you met me in my 20s, if you think I am bouncy and energetic and a lot right now, I mean, just imagine me in my 20s with without these autoimmune conditions and a lot more energy. And so that's who Shay is used to. That's who Shay married. And so Shay doesn't ever want to say no to that person, right? Like, to my truth. And they have stepped up and saved me from myself. Like, that is when I am not being kind or loving to myself, when I'm being too hard on myself, when I'm beating myself up. Shay is the person that I can be honest with about that. Shay is the person that I can talk through it with Shay, and I don't have to be embarrassed or think that Shay's going to think less of me. And then Shay's willing to just journey with me through it, because it can be hard. Let me say this, it can be difficult living with someone who has major mental health concerns. And it can be tiring. It can wear you out, right? And Shay hasn't gotten worn out, right? And I thank God for that. I thank God for reinforcing Shay so that Shay has the wherewithal to live with me and be my spouse. But that's why I also think that Shay is my gift from God, because they are the person who is kind of built to withstand me and kind of be my backbone, be my complement in this moment.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, I could say
And
so
you
much
two,
more, but that's just gushing at that point.
totally understand. Um, so I'm going to switch topics a little bit
Okay.
because there are two things that I know about you that I just want to poke at and see what your responses will be.
Mm-hmm.
And I apologize in advance. And the first one is, I would, it, we talked to you talked about church. You talked about the importance of church. I wonder if you would be willing to share with our listeners some of how you come at your beliefs as a Christian, as a person of faith.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think one thing, and you and I have joked about this, and I know you've joked with other people about this as well. Sometimes Siobhan's beliefs are a little conservative by my very like uber progressive Christian
Oh,
lens.
yeah.
Um, and sometimes those shock people.
Yes.
Um, but given what I know about, particularly what given my experiences with people who grew up in decidedly either decidedly or all but officially black church spaces,
Mm-hmm.
some of the beliefs you hold or some of the beliefs you have perhaps more held on to are not atypical for that background.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as I journey more into TFAM, for example, I encounter more and more folks who have backgrounds in Black church and Black Pentecostal church,
Mm-hmm.
who every so often, despite all their progressiveness, all their liberalism, still hold on to some beliefs that are, that some people might find. I'm not sure what the word is, but might find a little different than what they might assume.
Yeah.
And I know that as a former Roman Catholic, there are still some Roman Catholic beliefs that I sort of hold on to that a lot of my Protestant friends are like, "What the hell, Ben?" So I wonder if you would talk about that a little bit, or just perhaps holding on to some of those beliefs in general.
Yeah. So it's funny because sometimes I weird out my wife actually with my beliefs as well. And I did mean to say that when I was talking about Shay being my anchor. So Shay and I just have church, like not like have like a whole church thing, but like we still talk about God and God's love and the role of the church and faith and how we are like, so we are, so Shay and I are like a congregation of two, right? So I don't have that church anchor, but I do still have that spiritual space to kind of anchor me, and that's because Shay's willing to engage in that work with me. So sometimes I'll say something and Shay will say, "Oh, that's right, you grew up in a cult." And that's because I didn't just grow I didn't just grow up in the Black Pentecostal church. I also grew up in a Nazarene-based Christian school for 12 years. Um, and so when you say like I hold on to certain beliefs, there are things that I was taught that are going to like you can there are people on YouTube that you can follow and they'll tell you all about these things about what it means to go to essentially an evangelical Christian school and the fact that they use it. I think they're called Becca books, based out of
Mm,
Pensacola. It's a completely
yep.
different curriculum. You can look it up. And my curriculum was completely biblically based. So for 12 years, Bible was the first class of the day, period. A Bible was a textbook, specifically a King James version of the Bible. So I love these and thous because I memorized scripture. So in Bible class, every week you had a scripture to memorize. And as you got older, those passages of scripture got longer until we were memorizing like the entire Beatitudes or the Sermon of the Mount by the time you got to high school. So yes, I hold these beliefs, but also they've been drilled into my head. So if you ever hear me quoting King James scripture, King James version of scripture, it's because that is literally what I recited for years. I was also raised or not raised, but I was educated in a school that believed in creationism as opposed to evolution. So I literally had a different science education than most people, period. Like just very, very different. And I don't think that people can understand that. So I was raised as a creationist, like as a literal creationist. Maybe not though, because maybe in Daniel, a day is 1,000 years. I don't know. There was a whole thing. So, right, they're trying to get to that middle ground between evolution and
Yeah,
creation. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. You know that.
yeah.
But really was raised to and was educated in a way that um, talked about evolution as a debunked theory or a debunkable theory,
Mm,
and as completely like you could not square evolution with the Bible. That was the choice. Either you believed in the Bible or you believed in evolution. And it to this, like I have said to my wife in the past, how can you be a Christian and believe in evolution? Because of the way that I was raised,
yep.
I did not think that that was a thing. Like I I will be very honest with y'all. Things that I am working on, not disbelieving radiocarbon dating. Okay, I need you to understand that in high school science, I was taught that radiocarbon dating is inaccurate, that it is not a valid way to date fossils or old things. So anytime I'm I'm listening to something science, right? And they're like, yeah, we did the radiocarbon dating. And I'm like, well, you lost me, right? So I am working through that. I don't disbelieve science. I do believe science. I love science. And because of you, Ben, we've been talking about the Catholic Church and how much of the Catholic Church led early science and the scientific method and how it is based in the church. Um, and that so I don't actually think that that is true. I don't think that Bible and the science are in conflict with one another. And so whether or not I believe, however old the earth is, right? Like to me, that's a fun question to ask. However old the earth is, I believe that science is the study of God's creation and its orderliness, right? So science and the Bible are not um, they can live together in my brain. Now, I have told people I'm a creationist recently, like in the 2020s, and literally had a colleague of mine look at me and say, but you're smart. And it was the best reaction I've ever gotten because I didn't realize it's kind of like coming out Christian in queer spaces. I did not realize how creationists were thought of by the wider world. Like, oh no, you're just dumb and don't believe in science, and that's why you're a creationist. No. Let me say this very clearly. I am a creationist, and I still do claim being a creationist, because if I were not created, and I don't mean came up out some ooze, there was a big bang, it got hot, things happened, oh, look, yay, this is an accident, right? That doesn't work for me. That does not work for my brain. It doesn't work for me staying on this earth and staying alive. It just, if that is the answer, then game over, I'm done. I am a creationist because I believe in my heart of hearts that I was created on purpose by a loving God as part of an orderly creation. Like this whole idea of chaos, that's what I think it is. I think it's chaos versus God and order, and I'm choosing God and order over chaos. Now, to the extent that now whether or not I can agree with certain evolutionary principles, blah blah blah, whatever, for me, the core belief that I'm holding on to is that I am a beloved creation of an orderly and loving God, and my presence on this earth matters to Him and His order and His plan for His creation. That's probably one of the big ones. Are there other ones, Ben? That's the biggest one, I think, that people might not know.
No, that's definitely where I was hoping you would go with that,
Okay.
without asking you directly. Um, because when you told me that you are a creationist, I also had the same reaction as the colleague you mentioned.
Yeah.
The only difference was I didn't want to ask that question because it seemed really rude and presumptuous to ask, but at the same time, I think you called me out on it because I think we might have been on like getting ready for one of these,
Uh-huh.
um, and you saw my facial reaction, and we're like, okay, we probably need to talk about this for a second,
Yeah.
um, because even growing up in you talked about 12 years of in a Nazarene focused Christian school.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I went to 13 years of Catholic education, but um, even growing up in that, there's this wonderful thing called intelligent design,
Yes. Yeah.
which is kind of like we're trying to blend creationism and evolution together and make it
Mm-hmm.
still sound halfway intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's what we were taught. So,
Yeah.
so there definitely was still a piece of evolutionary science, but also with God's creative or intelligent design there
Mm-hmm.
as well. Um, but we were also taught in Catholic schools that there was not a fundamental conflict between faith and reason, faith
Right.
and science, Bible and science, etc. Um, so yeah, when you said that first, I was just kind of like, wait a second, wait, you have a law degree, you're
Yeah.
openly queer,
Yeah.
I thought you were progressive.
I
What the hell's
am.
going on here?
I know, right? Yeah.
But like I said, when I asked the question, you are not the only person I have met, particularly within the last few years, who is a incredibly intelligent, rational, progressive person who still holds on to or still believes or still makes sense of the world through beliefs that some people, would question.
Mm-hmm.
Not in a way that's like, oh, are you okay? Blink twice if you need some help or something kind of way, but in a way that's kind of like, that's not what I would think that you would or someone like you would hold or would posit or would continue to hold some faith in, to
Yeah.
be quite blunt.
Well, and I think that, I think about this a lot, unfortunately, or fortunately, just about, because I love science. I'm always watching science videos and listening to like Unearthed. It's part of a podcast, and they talk about all the different things that have been found in science in the past 4 months. And so I love God's creation. I think that is part of my worship of God, is literally noticing and thanking God for the creation, right? So creation is too much a part of my faith for the science to kind of just to throw it all out for the sake of the science. Both of those
Yeah.
can be true. And honestly, I don't need to wrestle with it. I don't need to reconcile God as creator with what the fossil record shows us, right? I don't need to reconcile that because it's a matter of faith. If that's not faith, if you have to get to reconciliation, if A plus A equals B, and until you get to A plus A equals B, none of this makes sense. That's not faith. Um, this is truly just a faith-based belief.
Yep. Totally. Totally. Um, so the other point I just want to kind of poke at
Mm-hmm.
is we talked a little bit. You talked a little bit about ministry. I'm not sure if you used the word call or not, but I know that you are a person who has probably for a while, if not your whole life, been discerning some kind of call to ministry. And it's something that I know I'm not the only one that has been kind of like, Siobhan, you have to go to seminary. Siobhan, you have to go to seminary. Um, where do you find yourself now in thinking about what that call is, whatever it might be?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to put out there, both as a pastor, but also my own theology, that God calls us to a lot of different things. God
Yeah.
doesn't just call us to church ministry
Mm-hmm.
or to ordained ministry. God calls people to a lot of different things. Where do you sense that call now?
I sense it's still there. So I've sensed the call since I was 16. And let me just say again, I was 16, so I was dumb, right? Like that's just because that's just a feature of being 16. And so when I felt this call, or discerned this call initially, my responses to God were, but I'm a woman. And that's just from the spaces I was in at the time. But I'm a woman was a legitimate thing. And also, why would you have me waste my intelligence being a pastor, which is rude as hell? Sorry, y'all. Like, really, my bad.
Hey,
um,
some of us question your intelligence and creationism, so that's
exactly,
fine.
exactly. And then also, like, and what is there to do? Like, I felt like God, gosh, it's, you ever find it weird to say the things out loud that you feel like God has said to you, Ben? Um, and again, faith. It doesn't look normal. So I don't think it's supposed to. The the call I heard was, I need you to lead people. Like I need you to be there for my people. And at the time I interpreted that strictly as Black people. Um, and I literally, again, having been raised in a predominantly white, being one of only two or three Black children in each class that I grew up in, literally said, "But what do you mean, Lord? We already had the civil rights movement. We've done it. We've done. Your people are fine. Your Black people are fine." Um, and so today, I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about this moment in the world, and it dawned on me this morning. Oh, this is the moment for Christianity. This is the moment of the church, right? Because and I think I'm having this experience along with most of the rest of the world, it's like, who can you trust anymore? All these different institutions and people and systems that we put our trust in have literally fallen before our eyes, like one by one. It's like, oh, we're going to trust this. Oh, we can't trust. Oh, they're going to save us. No, they're not, right? And I think we're kind of looking around on the liberal progressive side of the equation and going, who is going to save us? My gosh, isn't that a moment for the liberal progressive Christian church? Because the church, and I was just listening, this is not from me, I was listening to a wonderful church podcast from the West Coast. Chris Carter, Ben, I was listening to one of his sermons. And the church was designed to fight empire. The church was designed to be the way out when everything else in the world was telling you there was no way out. The church was designed to be the trustworthy thing in a world full of untrustworthy things. Um, so I kind of feel like it's come full circle. Like for years and years, I have felt guilty about not following that path that I had discerned early on and for doing these other things. And my wife has looked me in the face, I think yesterday, sent me a meme and was like, you gonna stop running from God because you ain't got enough. I think it said, they said you ain't got enough gas money to run from God. And that is very true. And I feel like God is showing me, is answering those questions that I had 30 years ago, right? And it's like, no, this is the time. These are the people. This is, this is where the need is. Um, I have a lot more respect for women. I have a lot more, I don't even say respect for, I have been shown through the witness and testimony of other Black queer women in the church that my status as a Black queer woman does not exclude me from the church. So I want to say that that was not something I came up with on my own. It was the witness and testimony of others. So visibility, right,
Yeah.
is always key in our community. So where am I on this calling? I was actually planning to work on my application after this recording, Ben. No, so I do. I never planned to go back to school. My dad told me I couldn't be a lifelong student, and then he passed away. So I guess I get to go back to school now and be a seminarian. This comes out of not just a calling, but a genuine desire to learn and know more. This comes out of a curiosity that can't be satisfied necessarily with books. This comes from the desire to learn and know more and be educated in this way. And I think I'm actually looking forward to it. If you had asked me this 4 years ago, I would have said, I do not want to go back to school. I do not want to sit in lectures. I do not want to write papers. That is not something that I ever want to do again. And now I'm curious. I'm looking forward to it. I'm almost excited to get in there and start learning some stuff. And that's I wouldn't say mostly. It's partly because of you, Ben, because you tell me about your cool classes that you're taking. So thank you for that, and thank you for being encouraging. And there have been other people in the world. Let me say, there have been a number of people who have encouraged me. There have been guests of this podcast who have encouraged me, listeners who have encouraged me. So I want to say thank you for that. That encouragement is so helpful because as beautiful and wonderful as a calling from God is, let me say that, depression and anxiety are always on their job, as my therapist would say. And, God's voice tends to be still and calm and peaceful. And my brain tends to be very loud and forceful with its negativity and with its telling me that, these things aren't going to work out. That's not for you. All those negative things. Just because you have a calling on your life doesn't mean that the devil isn't working to make sure that you don't fulfill that calling, right? Or that you don't, that there isn't a faith journey, right? And faith, I mean, doubt is part of faith, right? Like doubt and uncertainty are part of a faith journey. Um, but it's gotten better. It's gotten more positive, more hopeful. And I'm just thankful for the folks in my life who have been louder than the mean, unkind voices in my head.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, typically in our interviews with our guests, this is where typically you have led the interview and you ask if I have any questions.
Yes.
So, in lieu of that, I wonder if there's anything else that you didn't get to, anything else that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to, um, or just in general, anything else you want to add before we move into our segments.
Yeah, I kind of just want to acknowledge um, that the world has been hard. The world has been very hard and almost feels devoid of hope because we're not sure in what to put our hope, right? And I am really embracing this idea that my hope is in Jesus. And I'm saying that very specifically. Like I'm trying to like develop a new mantra, a new chant, right? Every time I get negative, every time I hear negative news, every time my brain says, Oh, that's another thing that we can't depend on. Or, oh, there's another institution gone. I'm trying to combat that with, well, good thing we got Jesus um, in my head to kind of keep my eye on the prize, honestly, and not get mired in all of this. And I want to say it's okay to get mired in it sometimes too. It's okay to rest. I have not said that. I will say that though. I might not have been savage in 2025, but damn it, I rested. I did do that successfully. And so I hope everyone believes that they deserve rest because you do. You deserve rest, no matter what's going on in the world, no matter how many people depend on you. You deserve rest. And that is the one thing I did accomplish in 2025. So I am thankful to God for that.
Amen. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to turn it back over to you for
Oh,
our first segment, our query of the day.
I get to host again. Woohoo! All right. So today's query of the day is going back to Ben, because Ben's going to spend Christmas singing until he's hoarse. He gets laryngitis for Christmas. What is your favorite Christmas hymn or carol? Or if you don't have a favorite, you're like, oh, great, generally. Is there a holiday hymn or carol that you don't like for some reason? Ben, what's your favorite?
So I have two, one that's pretty popular and one that some folks might not know. My favorite, and I will just acknowledge, bless her heart and bless her memory, my grandmother hated, which is O Come, O Come, Emmanuel.
Oh,
Um, I love it. I
yeah.
think it's a great winter holiday hymn. I love the lyrics, and I think it really is a good. Again, it's kind of set in a minor key, but it
Mm-hmm.
has that kind of you know happy that Jesus is born, but also kind of a little dark,
Mm-hmm.
just given the time of year. The other that I really like, and again, is a little bit more popular among Anglicans and Episcopalians, is "Of the Father's Heart Begotten."
Oh, I haven't,
It's a
don't think I
very
know that one.
poetic. The lyrics are very poetic. It's very, for lack of a better word, it's very English.
Mm-hmm.
English in the sense of England,
Mm-hmm.
of the Church of England. Again, you typically hear it in churches that have, well, to be very frank, a more European background to them, or congregations that have more of a European or English background. But again, it's a very poetic hymn. We sing it almost every year for lessons and carols at Swanee,
Mm-hmm.
um, and just one that I have really connected with and really like. Even though, again, it's not very popular. I had our music minister do it last year at Blue Ocean, and it took him forever to be able to find it and find the right recording because there are like three different versions. And of course, the version that I liked is like the most niche of those three versions.
Of
Um,
course.
but he did find it, and we did it, and it was beautiful, and I loved it. Um, but yeah, those two are my favorite. What about you, Siobhan?
I love, and it's not a very, I guess I would say, churchy hymn, but it is Little Drummer Boy.
Hmm.
And I just love the idea that, in the midst of all of these people bringing gold and frankincense and myrrh to this king, a little boy showed up and said, all I have is a drum and all I can do is play, but I'm willing to give that. And it's just such a good reminder, right? That all God is asking for, God isn't asking for money or riches or fame, that, or even the world. That is not what you owe the world. All you owe the world is your talent, right? All that you can give is your talent. And it's a precious gift, right? That is a precious gift to God. So it's just a good reminder, I think, that even the smallest and least among us are precious to the Lord.
Totally, totally. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, and
So
now,
our
yeah, sorry,
go ahead.
I'm not in hosting mode.
No, no, you're fine. Go ahead.
So now we're going to go into our second segment, which is a moment in queer Christian history. This is when Ben reminds us that not only have we always been here, we've always been here in the church.
Thank you. So I admit that this one is a little bit more tangential than our typical moments in queer Christian history. But I want to talk about Winston Leyland and Gay Sunshine Publications. Winston Leyland was born in England. His family moved to the U.S., specifically to Rhode Island, when he was around the age of 12. Um, After high school and a few years of college, he entered the seminary for an order of Catholic priests known as the Society of St. Columban, which is a historic missionary organization, missionary order within the Catholic Church. He studied he studied for ordination, was ordained in 1966, and was assigned to do a second master's degree in history at the University of California, and then assigned to a parish that this order ran at the time, also in Los Angeles. He was very active in some of the counter war movement going on during the Vietnam War. So much so that he was, in fact, sentenced briefly to house arrest, and then was ordered by, I shouldn't say ordered by his order, but directed by his order of priest to essentially not do public ministry because they felt that he was so very controversial, and he was controversial from the pulpit. He ended up actually leaving the order and no longer working as a Catholic priest. He joined the very new at the time Berkeley Gay Liberation Front, which had also started up in New York by this time. And at the same time, he founded a gay liberation paper called the Gay Sunshine Journal. Over the course of the Gay Sunshine Journal and also their associated press, they would publish articles by such people as William Burroughs, Allen Ginsberg, Gore Vidal, Tennessee Williams, and a number of other very well-known writers, authors, many of whom were, at least in their personal lives, identified as queer, if not openly identified as queer. He lived well into the 20th and 21st century, and continued to publish until 2020. I'm sorry, until 2000. That's the word I wanted. And again, published some of the early work of a number of well-noted LGBTQIA plus authors, and continued to work in different ways, albeit as a layperson, at that intersection of queer identity and faith.
Very cool. It was sad, but not sad, but I was disappointed when you said that they told him not to do the preaching. That made me sad.
Well, it's not clear from what I was able to find on him about whether it was that his order struggled with his activism, or if they struggled with the fact that he was preaching that from the pulpit.
Right, right.
It seems like he was ordered to stop preaching, or at least stop preaching within the churches that this order ran after he preached it from the pulpit.
Mm-hmm.
So it might have had less to do with actually his ideas and more the fact of where he decided to broadcast them from.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I think that someone shouldn't preach counter war and whatnot from the pulpit, but it may have had less to do with his ideas than with where he preached them.
Got it.
The other thing is, and I think it sounds like he sort of figured it out later on, but by the time he moved to Los Angeles, he was pretty well out of the closet personally.
Mm-hmm.
And that probably would not have gone very far with this order. That's an order that at least at the time, would have been viewed as much more conservative
Okay.
than a lot of the prevailing Catholic Church in the U.S. at that time. So I think we can take some hope from the fact that ultimately it was his choice to move on. It was his choice to do other things. He wasn't, kicked out of his order. He wasn't defrocked as a priest.
Okay.
He had the agency and the privilege to be able to do that on his own, which unfortunately is a better position than many queer clergy have been in the past.
Absolutely.
And still are in sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Ben, that brings us to the end of this episode. How do you think we did?
I think we did very well.
Yeah.
I do want to say, even though it is our podcast, but is there anything you want to promote specifically, or want to just kind of note?
Yeah, I mean, because this is the end of the year, and I am nothing if not a development director in my heart, and that is end of year giving. If you are like lots and lots and lots of folks give at the end of year, so if it was your intention to give at the end of the year, once you saw where everything kind of shook out financially for you, that's absolutely fine. You've got 9 or 10 more days to do that. And I know some amazing nonprofits that are looking for support. Just want to say it's been a rough year in the nonprofit world. It's been a really rough year. I don't know a nonprofit that hasn't had to let folks go and to reduce services. And so if you have not finished your Christmas shopping, if you have not put a nonprofit on your Christmas list, consider doing that. It would be a wonderful thing. I know anyone that you choose to give to would be incredibly thankful for that, including Love Boldly. What about you, Ben? Anything to promote?
Not really. That would have probably been my only one as well. We will definitely, as Love Boldly, have programming coming up in the new year.
Oh, yeah.
I would just ask folks to stay tuned to our website and to our social media for that. But as of when we're recording, I don't have information about what those will look like. I will say that our 2026 devotional is set to come out with the first devotion on January the 1st, 2026. So definitely take a look at that. That should be by now available on our website. Or will be coming very shortly.
And I want to let folks know that if you're enjoying this podcast and you're like, you know what I need is more Ben and Siobhan in my life, or and I'm pretty sure no one has said that. And we're going to bring you more Ben and Siobhan. We've got another stream for this same podcast, or another podcast in the same stream, that's going to be looking at another part of the Christian church. It's going to be about being queer in the church and the way that churches can show up and affirm folks and include folks or not. So that's a little bit of a hint. Also, it's Ben loves music. So Ben's told you a lot of times that he loves music. So that's your hint for today. Maybe we'll give you a little bit more in the next episode.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, Siobhan, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you.
Sharing so much from your life, your testimony, and your work. I can, speaking only for myself, I very much appreciate it. I very much appreciate you sharing with us and also being my amazing co-host.
Oh, thank you, Ben. Thank you for letting me share more and ramble on. And y'all, this is really fun. I really enjoy this. So I want to say thank you to everyone for listening to 2 seasons of, almost fully 2 seasons of Coming Out Christian. We really appreciate you. And we just hope that you're sharing it with others so that we can grow this great community of folks.
Thanks so much for joining us today. We hope this conversation encouraged you, challenged you, and maybe just helped you feel a little less alone on your journey. If this podcast has been meaningful to you, would you consider supporting the work of Love Boldly? Love Boldly's mission is to create spaces where LGBTQIA+ people can flourish in Christianity, and your donation helps make conversations like this one possible. You can give at www.loveboldly.net www.loveboldly.net/donate. That's www.loveboldly.net/donate. Want to stay connected with the podcast? Follow us on Instagram at comingoutchristian_podcast for updates, resources, and community. Until next time, remember that you can be queer and Christian and queer.